Warning: the following podcast has been rated listener R due to strong language, violent situations, drug references, sexual innuendos, and who knows what else. Listener discretion is advised. With that being said, hang on, sugar tits, because we're about to get wobbled.
Let's go ahead and switch it up a little bit. We've talked a lot about motorcycle club life and how it is, but what I also think people forget too is there's a person behind the cut. You're not just Playboy, you're also Corey.
Yeah.
You had a story before you started all this. So you had mentioned your kids. And after we come home from Cleveland, they both friended me on Snapchat. And I thought it was hilarious because your sons were asking who I was. One of them was like, "Are you Wobble?" And I said, "I am the Wobble. I am the guy. You know me. You just haven't met me yet, whatever." So I want to talk to you. What's it like being a dad to kids now? Are you seeing yourself in your kids as they're growing up, or are they still kind of a little too young to notice?
It's weird as a parent, I guess, because they do things and you are like, "Oh, that's totally me." Like, now I got to discipline myself out of my child.
Right.
But it's funnier when we go into my mom and my stepdad's, and I only say stepdad on here so that people understand. I lost my dad 6 years ago. He had a heart attack, passed away. I don't refer to my stepdad in person or in life as my stepdad. Hey, this is my dad, John. I tell people as I grew up, I didn't have a dad and a stepdad. I was blessed with two fathers. He raised me. He's a huge part of the reason I am the way I am and the man I became. And the older I got, the better our relationship became, especially after I became a father. You could just kind of see things change, I guess. Not that we didn't have a good relationship, but I guess once I became a dad, things changed between us. He's seen me raising my kids and things like that. But anyway, we won't get into that. We go in every Sunday for dinner. I'm missing this Sunday, which sucks because they're making pizza rolls. My mom makes homemade pizza rolls, and I fucking love them.
So good.
Oh yeah. So I'm gonna have to stop in and try to steal one before I take off this evening. But anyway, we'll go in there on Sundays, and my kids will be doing something, and I'm yelling at them, like, knock the fuck off, whatever it is the case may be. And my mom and my dad will look over and they'll be like, "Oh, hey, it's little Corey," or "Hey, stop it, little Corey." And I'm like, "That's not funny. I wasn't that bad." And they're like, "Oh, those are totally your kids. You were that bad sometimes." And they're like, "They're just being boys." But at this point in life, I guess, as you're meeting my kids, they're 10 and 12, about to be 11 and 13. So they're not, I don't want to say they're grown or
They're very mature young men. And from my perspective, you can tell that they're your kids. They are, you can look at them and tell they're well disciplined. They know their right from wrong. They're very respectful. What little bit I have known them and talked to them and just seen them, you can tell like they came from a very good upbringing.
I appreciate that. I mean, they're boys. They do boy shit.
We
They
all
get in
did.
trouble.
All of
But
us.
I do appreciate that. It's nice to hear it from someone on the outside looking in, not just family being like, "Oh, you're raising good kids," because your family's going to tell you that regardless. And
Right.
so it's nice when other people are around them and they're like, "Hey, you do have really good kids," and I'm like, "Thanks, I appreciate that. It makes me feel good, like I'm not fucking this up all the
Nah,
way."
your kids aren't
Because
shit trucks by any means.
becoming a parent was, I mean, when I first found out my oldest was his mom was pregnant with him, dude, I was scared shitless. I mean, I don't know I don't know anything about being a dad. I mean, I know how my dads were and how my grandpa is and things like that, but I'm like, I don't know how to raise a fucking kid. I'm still raising myself. I'm out on my own and got my own place and have a girlfriend, but how do you parent?
Right.
And you take advice from people around you that have done it, your parents, grandparents, your friends' parents, and I mean, there's always someone there to help. But you just got to kind of figure it the fuck out. I
That's
mean,
what Kristen and I have talked about it too. We've talked about what our lives would be like with kids, and I will eventually have kids, but I keep telling myself that I'm like, I don't know if I'm really ready for kids yet. I just don't know. But every person that I've ever talked to said if you don't just have a kid, you're never going to be ready for one.
Yeah,
You
you're not.
always think that you're never gonna be ready, you're not gonna fucking know what to do, you're not gonna fucking it all just comes with having a kid, you just fucking do it.
I was not planning either of my children. I don't wanna say they were mistakes, obviously, I was doing things that lead to kids, but there
Doing a lot
was
of practicing is what you're
lots of practice. Um, but it wasn't like, "Oh, hey, we're gonna try to have a kid." I mean, some people do.
Right.
Heimdall,
Yeah.
he was like, "I wanna have a kid," and then, I mean,
It's
they
a process to go through for some people, and I
they
get
were
that.
ready to have a kid,
Yeah.
and they planned it out and did things that way. Me, on the other hand, when my oldest was born, I was just over 21 years old. Uh, and at that point, everybody's like, "Oh, you're an adult." No. At 21 years old, you are totally not a
You ain't got
fucking
shit
adult.
figured out yet.
You do not have shit figured out. I was working a job that wasn't gonna get me anywhere, and all I was worried about was going to work, drinking, partying, having a good time. I was still very much a kid. Like, I wasn't worried about bills or retirement or, "Hey, what if my kids wanna go to college one day?" So, I mean, that's all shit that leads you into where you're gonna end up, and that was the reason I ended up where I am now. I mean, into the career choice I was. My father did it, up until his heart attack. He was there for 22 years, so it was something that I grew up around, hearing stories, things like that, and, I was like, "Fuck it, I have to do something." I had a kid, I had another one, let's see, yeah, and my youngest would have been a year old, just over a year old. When I started there, and I'm like, I have to do something that A, makes me better money, but B, is going to give me long-term results.
Sets you up for the
I
long
need a
road.
retirement. I need insurance. You need those things, not so much for myself because at that point, and still to this day, I'm not a person that goes to the doctor unless I feel like I'm dying. But when you have kids to raise, that's shit you think about. And I'm like, I got to do something different. So here I am almost 10 years later. And I always say that I didn't grow up. My kids made me grow up because when they came along, when I first found out their mom was pregnant with my oldest, Preston, I didn't have a fucking clue what I was doing, and I was still worrying about partying and fucking off. And when he was born, I was like, something's got to change. I'm not going to be that dad.
Right.
There's a stigmatism about dads, and I don't even want to say there's a stigmatism, but there's shit bags out there.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I'm not going to be
You
that
feel
dad.
like if your kid grows up a certain way that you obviously had a part in that. So you
Yes.
want your kid to go the right direction. Yeah, I'm just saying this out of not experience, but just kind of me thinking. But you steer them in the right direction and hope they go the right way because at the end of the day, they're a reflection of you.
Yes. Yeah, everywhere you go, everything you do, people you encounter, they look at your kids and the way that they carry themselves, the way they act, and that's a reflection of you as a parent. Like, and when I go out to eat, and it's nice. We went out last night, went over to the Roadhouse, and it was nice when they were younger. Feed them some chicken nuggets and some French fries, and they're happy as can be. No, both my kids last night order a 6-ounce fucking sirloin with 2 sides, and I mean they're to the point they're eating as much as I do.
Feeding grown ass adults.
Literally. Literally, quite fucking literally.
So you had touched on it a little bit, and I want to dive into it just a little bit more. Your dad was a corrections officer.
Yes.
My father was also a corrections officer as I was growing up. So I knew what it was like growing up in a corrections based household. And obviously you do too. And I want to kind of bounce stories back and forth a little bit and just tell people what it's like if you've never had a parent working public safety or in corrections, police officer, EMS field. It's a different setting to live in, really.
Yeah.
So I remember dad having to work the late nights and pull the doubles. You're asking your mom, "Hey, where's dad at?" Dad had to work a double tonight. He couldn't come home. He got froze, whatever. Uh, Trying to get your dad to take your birthday off with you so you guys could go. We wanted to go bowling in Cambridge, and I was super upset that he couldn't get my birthday off. My birthday fell in the middle of the week.
Yeah.
People don't have middle of the week days off until you work something like that where you have bullshit random ass fucking days off. And dad's like, I don't know if I can get it. We ended up burning a sick day. We went bowling. It was the funnest fucking time of my life. But I realized that he had to call in sick and the time that he had to use to then go for my birthday instead of us celebrating my birthday on a random fucking Thursday.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So backtrack me through a little bit what it was like for you growing up in a corrections based household.
I don't know. I guess I want to say that I'm probably more strict on my kids than my dad was when we were with him. coming from that kind of household. For me, it was more about the, hey, what happened at work? You know, how
Yeah,
was
I
work?
remember that too. Hey,
The
hey, what'd you do at work
stories.
today?
Yeah.
And it was never. I can't say it was never like that because eventually he does tell. He would tell me what happened, and
Yeah.
it's not something you want to relive all the time.
No,
But
no,
as a
absolutely
kid,
not.
you're like, "Hey, what happened today?"
Yeah, you think it's cool.
Yeah, and it was
Oh,
a good day. Everything was fine. Everything happened. But you know now what fucking happens in a regular fucking day. But
yeah.
I remember that, and it was crazy you said that because that sparked that for me. I was like, I remember being a little kid and walking in the house. He didn't even have his fucking uniform off yet. Still had his lunchbox in his hand. Hey, what happened today?
Yeah, there would be days, I would stay with my dad, and at one point in time during his career, he was working nights. So on the nights that we were with my dad, our grandma would stay with us. Um, and he'd come home in the morning, and either I'd stay up all night, or as soon as he came home, I was up, and hey, what happened at work? You want to hear them stories, and the older you get, the more details you got.
Yeah. Yep.
So mine, I guess, was more about the experiences of him going to work, not so much, I guess, how he was at home.
Yeah.
Um, because he wasn't super strict. I mean, we had rules to follow like any other household, but it wasn't anything super crazy. My kids tell me I'm a drill sergeant, and I'm like, I guess I am in a way. I'm strict, but I'm fair. I
You
mean,
still let your kids live their life.
they're still kids and they have more than most. I mean, my kids really don't want for anything. Um, but I also don't want them to grow up and be shitheads because I'm like, we deal with that shit. So I'm like, you're not going to grow up and be somebody that's not contributing to society and doing a good
Right.
job. Like, you can play the video games, you can go outside and play bikes. They got paintball guns and BB guns and four-wheeler go-karts, shit like that.
My
But
dad was the same way. He was strict in some points, but he also knew how much leash he could give me before I hung myself.
yeah,
So he would give me enough to do whatever. I would go bowling with my friends back in high school, and mom always said the only thing open past midnight is hospitals and whorehouses, and you don't need to be in either of them. Turns
yeah,
out I went to a lot of fucking strip clubs in my days, but she is very true. There's are not good places to be after midnight. But my dad, anytime we would go bowling in Zanesville, it was always open from 10 to 2. You could bowl as much as you want between those two times, and it was like $20. So by the time I got to Zanesville from where I lived and started bowling at 10, mom's like, you got to be home by midnight. And I'm like, I bowl one game for $20.
yeah,
Then I got to turn around and come home. And I always got super mad about that when my mom and dad were divorced. And I understand why my mom did it. And I was never mad at her. Well, I was mad at her for it as a kid. But as an
yeah.
adult now, I know why. I
They're
understand what
looking
she
out
meant.
for you.
Dad was always like, anytime it was his weekend, he's like, at 2:00, you're here.
Yeah,
Text me where you're at. Let me know when you leave. Come back here. But he gave me that leash, and it gave me enough to know, what I could do. But he was also still strict at the same time. Another thing too, my dad coached me as t-ball, coach pitch, and like biddy league, pony league kind of baseball thing.
hmm
And I remember asking him too. I said, "What was it like for you doing an 8-hour shift in corrections and being around the shit that I know you've been around to then having to flip a fucking switch and teach fucking kids t-ball? Because there's no fucking organization in that whatsoever." So I said, "What is that like for you?" And he said, he said it was a complete change of pace, but he said, "I fucking loved it. Because you guys were innocent fucking kids. I didn't have to worry about what you were doing. If you were chasing butterflies in the outfield, you guys were fucking kids."
yeah,
It completely was a complete 180 from what he would do at work. And he said, "That's what I loved so much about it." He said, "I could look out and see fucking so and so picking their nose out there." And I was like, this is a kid
yeah.
living his best fucking life.
It's
Same
a
thing with coach pitch.
it's a switch, and I guess some people are better at turning it on and off. My kids during the wrestling season, their head coach will be like, "Hey, you can jump on the mat and help out anytime you want." I'm like, "Look, I'll help out with my kids, but I'm not the kind of person that you want helping out with the rest of the kids." It's like, because I'm gonna end up telling this little fucker like, "Hey, you're not fucking listening.
Yeah.
Do it this fucking way." Fuck is one of my favorite words, and that's not language that is coherent. I guess I don't even know if that's the word I want to use.
Acceptable by other
Yeah.
people. It's fucking stupid, but
I mean, like, if you come over to the house and we're bullshitting,
yeah.
people apologize all the time. And I'm like, you're not going to say something in front of my kids that I haven't said or worse.
Yeah.
But my kids also know what's right and wrong, and they know that they can't repeat it. There's kids out there that don't know that. So they hear you talking that way and they think it's acceptable for them to go home and look at their dad and be like, "Hey, fucker." The
Right.
kid's going to get smacked in the mouth, especially if he's mine. So I'm like, I'll help my boys, I'll get down on the mat with them, put them in their stances, things like that, run them through moves. But I'm going to stay away from actually helping coach because I don't have that switch that says, hey, watch your mouth, things like that. I mean, I can go be around kids. My
Right.
boys have their friends over, shit like that, and it's fine.
It's very difficult to flip that switch off. It's
To just mind my words is hard for me.
absolutely.
I have a sailor mouth. I mean,
I think we all do. And working in the profession that we do, a lot of people are like, you don't have to. You don't have to talk like that at your work. And I'm like, you don't fucking understand.
sometimes if you don't talk that way, you can't get your point across.
It's very true what you're saying. And it's just one of those things. Some people can go their whole career doing what we do and do it the way they want, not have any issues or whatever. And then there's some people that go in the way that I went in. I knew what I was going in to do. I knew the way I had to attack it. And flipping that switch back off once you're home and doing your own thing. Kristen says shitbag all the time now because that's my favorite word. It's fucking either shitbag or shit truck. And I never picked it up until I started working where I do. And it's just funny how you pick that shit up and then it's hard to fucking turn it off. Or even like you said in public, when you're out at a restaurant or something, it's hard to turn your senses off to what we're trained to do. I always sit with my back towards the wall. I know you're the same way. The only reason you didn't do it today was because I was sitting with my back to the wall.
Yeah,
Somebody that you trust has to have their back against the wall so they can see what the fuck's going on.
Heimdall and I, we go out to eat together. If we walk up to the table at the same time, it's a competition of who can sit down with their back against the wall.
Yeah.
But again, just like today, if it's somebody you're there with that is like-minded, then it's not that big of a deal.
Ear hustling is the worst for me. And Kristen will tell you, like, if you ever get a chance to sit down and talk to her about my ear hustling and how fucking bad it is, her and I can be having a conversation. I'm staring at her, but I'm listening to the conversation of the people at the table next to me and don't have a fucking clue what she's saying to me.
Yep, been there.
And I can't repeat what she just told me just because I cannot shut the ear hustling thing off. It's just something that I've fucking grown to, and you just fucking do
You're
it.
constantly listening
You
because you don't know
can't-
what's going on.
You can't stop it. But I just wanted to know if there was anything like that you noticed with your dad growing up. Because like I said, my dad was strict, but at the same time, he gave me that leeway. And as I got older, I realized too, like I saw the transition from my dad where we became father son to almost best friends.
You definitely do. You go from them having to be your parent, teach you things, discipline you, to more of you're an adult now. And that's what I was saying, like with my stepdad, I saw that change where, okay, I'm not a kid anymore in his eyes. I'm a father. So we're more on that friend level more than father son
Yeah.
level. He's no longer teaching me. And I mean, to this day, he still does. If I need help, he comes out and helps. He helped me build my deck on my house. If I have a question, he can walk me through it, things like that. But you definitely transition more from a role model and a teacher into just being there as a friend and being able to talk and just bullshit with them.
Right. So another thing that you had mentioned too, and we talked about this a little bit before the podcast, it's always about that balance with work, the club, family, everything, and trying to find that balance is extremely hard. You also like spending a lot of time outside of work and outside the club with your kids.
Yeah.
And we've talked about that before, talked about different things. And you had mentioned that you and your boys were geocaching. And I'm like, what the fuck is this dude talking about? I don't even know what the fuck is geocaching? But then when you told me about it, I told Kristen the story and she's like, oh yeah, we used to do that all the time in the Scouts. I'm like, what the fuck? Does everybody else know that I don't? So tell me about some of the, like, give me a geocaching story about you and your boys. First, explain to me what it is, and then tell me like a story that you like to tell about geocaching.
So geocaching is, it can be both digital or it can be something physical. They can be as small as just a piece of paper rolled up in a tube and hidden, something the size of a bottle cap, clear up to an old ammo box. They're hidden by GPS coordinates. Nowadays, you get on the app. You used to have to get on the line on the computer, print shit out, and you actually carried a handheld GPS that would only give you coordinates. You don't see it like we do nowadays on our phone. So you'll punch it in. I pay for the app every year so I can see more. You can do it, the free one, but you don't see as many. And it was something I enjoyed in Scouts. That's where I learned about it. The troop I had that I was part of, We actually have a geocache out at the state park, and it's still there right now. Actually, my boys want to go find it. It's one we haven't went and found. But you get on the map, look in your area, and it shows like a sad face if you haven't found it, or it'll show a smiley face if you have. It gives you like digital rewards or awards for finding different ones, things like that. And it was just something one day I'm like, hey, do you guys want to go try this? And they're like, yeah. Well, so we started driving around town, by the reservoir. They're everywhere. I mean, you can find them. There used to be one right by Kennedy's Bakery in Cambridge, and it was, tiny, the size of a little, like a watch battery. Some of them are digital, where you'll go find like a historical sign that tells a story. There's one in Old Washington about the Morgan's raid during the war and things like that, and it's digital. There's one there that you go and answer some questions about what's on the plaque and the information you gathered. You put it in, answer the questions, and it gives you the award or the token for finding that one. And then you go into the cemetery, and there's actually a box hidden where you sign a little log. And they actually make like geo bugs that have a little like QR code on them, and you can buy them offline. You can buy a pack of them. I couldn't tell you how much they are off the top of my head, but you scan it, put it in the geo box, and then someone else will come along. They'll pick that bug out. They'll leave something, but they'll take that bug with them. And you might have dropped that bug in, say, Cambridge, Byesville, you're local here somewhere, and it might end up clear across the United States at some point, because people traveling for work or whatever, there's hundreds of thousands of people that do it. So as they travel, they'll pick something up, put it in their bag, and they might end up, clear back home in, say, California, dropping it out there, because they picked it up here in Ohio. So it's just something kind of neat that gets you out of the house, a little bit of exercise. It's fun. They give you hints, because it's not, the coordinates don't take you right to it. They're hidden.
It's like a fucking treasure hunt, basically.
Really, it is. And sometimes you find stuff. They have things for you to take. Sometimes you leave stuff. Sometimes you just sign your initials because the paper's super small and you leave it. But I found them in the top of fence posts right outside of a house, clear to being several miles into the woods hiking, and you have to go off the path that you're hiking on, 100 yards to even find it. So under rocks and trees. Their businesses have them. They might be in a flower box in the windowsill. I found them like that. But it's just something fun. Maybe we'll get together one day, jump on the bikes, and go find a couple.
That'd be cool as shit just to go do. Because like I said, the only thing I've ever seen anything like that is somebody like will paint a rock or some shit, and I was like, I was painted at this place.
Yep. Yeah,
and then you
too.
drop it off, or somebody picks it up and they take it somewhere, and then somebody else finds it. They take it somewhere else, and you have to post a picture on Facebook or whatever of what you did with the rock or wherever you put it, where you found it, whatever. I've seen things like that, and I assumed it was kind of something like that, maybe. But like I said, I never grew up around the Scouts or knowing anybody that was one. So I didn't. All of that to me was blind. I didn't know anything about it until you guys started. I told Kristen about it, like I said, and she was like, "Yeah, we used to do that." And I'm like, I have no fucking clue.
It's a blast. It's a real good time, and like I said, I think part of it is the mystery, like the hints. One of the last ones I did with my boys, I'm trying to remember the exact hint. It was like, it's not above, look below, sacrifice your arm to the unknown. And you had to physically reach down under this guardrail. And you're on the side of a road, but you can't see back down in it. It's where it curves down and meets the road and almost flattens out. And so you can't see in there. You're just reaching in and looking for this box. Well, my arm was too big. I couldn't get my hand down in there. So I looked at my youngest boy and I'm like, hey, you got to stick your hand in there and grab that box. I'm like, I know it's in there. He's like, I don't know, Dad. And I'm like, just do it. You got this. Sure enough, he reached his hand back in there. He's shoulder deep under this guardrail, but there it is.
No shit.
So
that's awesome.
Yeah, it's a good time. My boys love it. So it's just something we do here and there. And we don't do it every day or all the time we're out, but we'll do it just to get out of the house and go tinker around for a couple hours. Sometimes we do it on Sundays for an hour or two, and then we ride into my mom's house for dinner.
That's cool. That's really cool as fuck to do. Couple other things I know some people wanted to know. Kristen had asked, what are some things that really grind your gears? Is there anything about you that just fucking peeves you off, or just small things that just fucking get under your skin?
People.
Yeah, I know you say that.
No, I say it as a joke, but people not everybody, but people in general, especially large crowds, fucking irk my nerves.
Yeah.
Little things that grind my gears, hearing someone chew their food fucking
Somebody chew with their mouth
sends
open.
me up the fucking wall. Like, chew with your mouth shut. I don't know why that's not a common thing that kids are taught, but like, I don't want to, you're not a cow. I don't need to hear you chewing your fucking food. Whispering.
You told me that, and I was like, are you fucking serious?
Whispering. Like, there's times for it and there's times not for it. But when especially if someone's wanting to whisper and they get up in your ear and they're like whispering, I could punch a motherfucker in the mouth. Like, I don't know what it is in my head, but you start whispering and it just flicks this switch and I want to lose my fucking mind.
Those are the stories I like hearing, is the weird fucking things that set people off like that.
Dude, I'm telling you right now, if you need to tell me a secret, pull me off to myself where we can go talk normal like we are right now and no one can hear us.
Right.
Don't, I mean, there's times for it that you just have to do it.
Yeah.
But yeah, whispering, man. It's when you ask me that, it's probably one of the first things I think of.
That's
whispering for whatever reason.
Hilarious. That is so funny.
Fucking drives me wild.
I never thought about that. I never thought that would ever bother anybody but you.
Nope, that bothers me. Whispering, fucking. It's.
We both talked about the time on the microwave too, leaving time on the microwave.
Yep.
I don't know why that pisses me off. It just does.
Clocks not being set, especially digital clocks, when they're not set, like power goes out and they're sitting there blinking.
Yeah.
Irks my nerves. Like, if I came over here and your clock wasn't set, I'll be setting it for you. So
my grandma was real big about it. She sets her clocks 10 minutes fast. Every fucking clock in her house.
My vehicles are that way. All my vehicles are set somewhere between 5, 7, 10 minutes fast.
Yeah.
Especially, commuting to work. I run out of the house and thinking I'm already late, and then I get in the car and I'm like, oh fuck, and then I'm like, nah. Tricked myself. I still got a few minutes.
Right.
So it's nice. And everybody's like, oh, well, it's set fast. You do, but you don't. It's not something you really think about.
Yeah, it's not something you think about.
If you're in your car and you're like, okay, I'm going to be right on time, and your clock's 7 minutes fast, and you show up right on time, which, as you know, I am notoriously on time or right on time or even a few minutes late. It's nice to, look at the clock and be like, okay, I'm going to be on time. You show up and you're like, oh, I got 10 minutes because the clock's set fast.
Right.
So
that's what my grandma always said. She's like, I like being early to places. And she's like, if I keep myself by my clocks, she said, I'll feel like I'm getting there right on time or even a little early, but you're earlier than what you think you are. And like you said, it's not something that you're always like, oh, that clock's 10 minutes fast. I don't have to worry about it. You'll forget that motherfucker's 10 minutes fast and you'll just fucking go do it.
Yeah. My dad and John, he would preach to me growing up, if you're on time, you're late.
Yeah.
And you would think as many times as I heard that as a kid, I would be early. But
I lost, just the backstory. I lost my ass at the bets that we had for the memorial ride up to Hopedale because I told Kristen you were going to be late and that you would not have sleeves on. I said, I guarantee you he will be late. Well, we have to be waiting on him and he will have a shirt with no sleeves. And you fucking showed up. I was like a half hour early. You showed up 20 minutes early, which surprised the fuck out of me. And you had a shirt with sleeves on. I'm like, what the fuck is this guy's problem? He's got to be sick. Something's not right with this guy.
Yeah. No, my goal was to be the first one there. And I'm like, oh man, if we leave here with a half hour to go, it's a 10-minute ride to meet everybody. We'll have plenty of time, grab a drink, top off with some fuel, and we're good. I pull in and you're already there. And I'm like, well, I'm not first, but I'm not fucking
not
last.
late.
And you were like, man, you fucked me up today. You're early and you got fucking sleeves on. What the hell? And I'm like, yeah. I've been doing better about trying to, especially if I'm going to take the cut off somewhere, not looking like I'm a complete, I don't know, idiot or something, but just sleeveless is the way to go, man. I'm comfortable.
That's how I am. And it's funny because Kristen and I have talked about this 100 times. For our first date that we met, because we met on Tinder and we met up at a restaurant in Marietta. We went to the boathouse for our first date. I wore steel-toed boots, jeans, and a Harley Davidson shirt. If that's not me,
yeah,
that's who I am. I told her, I was like, you're lucky I wore a shirt with sleeves because I said that was like the nicest thing that I had. She wore like a really nice shirt with jeans. She was all decked out. I still have the picture from our first date, the way she looked. And she's like, I just wish you would have looked better on our first date. Like you actually cared and tried. And I was like, I did try. Like that was my nicest Harley Davidson shirt with sleeves on it.
Yeah, you don't know. If I'd have showed up like I am any other time, I'd have looked even worse. But
yeah.
It's just you. Like today, I mean, running down here, I knew we were just eating lunch and we're just two dudes, but I'm like, I'm taking the bike. So it's boots, blue jeans, and a cut-off shirt. So, I mean, I do try sometimes, and Heimdall's wife, Rachel, she'll give me some shit every once in a while. She'll be like, "Holy shit, Corey's got sleeves on," and I'm like, "Well, you know, I do own T-shirts. I
Yeah.
just don't prefer
I
to
don't
fucking wear
like.
them."
Yeah, I don't like them. I don't know
And
if it's just because I'm fat too. I don't know.
even in the wintertime, like if I have a long sleeve shirt on or a hoodie, I roll the sleeves up as high as I can fucking get them.
Yeah.
I don't know what
And
it
a
is.
wife beater, or a cutoff underneath. It's always.
I always have some kind of cutoff on, almost all the time, and even in a cutoff, I got a tank top underneath.
Right.
I've been that way for a long time.
So another thing too about you that some people want to know, and especially Kristen, she wanted me to ask you this question. You and I both collect Harley Davidson poker chips. A lot
Yep.
of people don't understand what they are. I even had Jonathan ask me at the last podcast. He didn't know they existed. I'm like, every shop has them. You go in. That's just anytime we go to a new Harley shop, you've got to get a poker chip.
I never collected them prior to joining the club.
I didn't either.
It wasn't a thing. Got my first Harley, went to the first shop, and I'd seen them, been over to Grinders, and I'm like, you know, what the fuck's this? And he explained to me what they are, and I'm like, that's kind of fucking neat. So I picked up my first one over in Zanesville at Finks, and now everywhere I go, I pick one up, and it's kind of neat. Especially, I don't know if all the chapters are this way, but our chapter, like if you go out of town, say to another state or whatever, and you stop by a Harley shop, you pick up one for yourself, but you pick up one for everybody else too.
Yeah.
So like when I went out to Colorado for my brother's wedding, I'm like, I'm hitting this Harley shop. Like I might never be back here again. So I went. It was raining, but the place was packed. They had some kind of event that day, and the people that were out in the rain on bikes was phenomenal. The whole place was packed. I went in and got a hat, a couple shirts, got my brother a shirt, picked up some things for some family members while I was there, but I grabbed a chip for myself, and I actually sent it out in the group chat. Was like, hey, how many chips do I need? And that was the first time that I'd been somewhere no one else had been, so I got to pick them up, bring them back to everybody else.
I've got your chip that you gave me in there, and we were talking about some of the places. I'm almost positive Grinder gave me one from Mexico, if I'm not mistaken.
Yep.
I've got a Mexico chip. Let's see, we went to when we went for vacation for Myrtle Beach. There's 3 fucking Harley shops right there around the Myrtle Beach area, and I got one from each of the shops, and I brought. But this is before I joined the club, but I just thought it was a cool thing to grab, and those are one of the things that I like to collect. It's something small, not super expensive like every fucking other Harley piece of equipment or
they're like
apparel
$3
or whatever. It's like $2-3 for a chip, but it's just nice to have. And people are expanding too. We have our own chip as a Cambridge chapter.
I've noticed several chapters actually do those. I don't know. I think I might have one other one. I think it's Kentucky's. I think Kentucky has a chip. I have one of theirs. So yeah, and actually for Christmas I got a holder for them. It's just got little holes that are just big enough to get the chip down in, and then you got to use a knife or something to pull them back out if you needed to. But they're magnetic, and I didn't know that. So they'll actually, I don't know what it is or how they stick in there, but it's almost, I think they're magnetic. I'd have to really look, but they just stick down in the hole. So I separate mine, and I do like my club chips at the bottom, and then all my Harley Davidson chips are at the top. And then people see them, they're like, "You've been here?" And I'm like, "No, I haven't been there. It's a collection." So like I just explained, we go somewhere and you go on vacation, you pick some up, bring them back. It's not so much that, I like collecting them from everywhere I've been. So if I'm somewhere and it's a new shop I've never been, I go in and pick one up.
Right.
But it's just a collection of them that I have from different places. Not so much that I've been there. Hopefully one of these days I'll get to go to some of those places and check them out. But
that's like the Keys. I know Chewy and Buckles brought the chip back from the Florida Keys when they went.
Yeah.
Never been down there before, but the chip's cool to have. And I think it's the one with the chicken on it, maybe. It's got the chicken and the southernmost point or whatever.
Yeah.
But I know I've got that one in there. And it's just cool to see like different chips that each Harley Davidson shop has because they're all different and unique. Everyone's got a different thing about them.
Colors are different. The names, like the one in Colorado, that's Pikes Peak. I didn't actually get to go up Pikes Peak, and I will go back to Colorado one day just to do it. And I've heard, different people tell me about taking their bikes up it. Actually, Scout, I think, has been there. But the elevation change, I'd have to look it up to remember it, but it's way up there. And for my brother's wedding, my aunt and uncle got to go. It was one of my places I wanted to go while we were there. Just ran out of time. But that Harley Davidson shop is actually Pikes Peak Harley Davidson that I got to go to, so it was kind of neat.
I know when we went up, Kristen and I were up in Michigan for something. I can't remember what the fuck it was for. now. But we went up to Wolverine Harley Davidson. Every Harley Davidson has a different name, different shop,
Yeah.
whatever. And I know I got a chip from up there when we went too, because we were up there for something. I can't remember what it was, but we went in the Harley shop like 15 minutes till close, and they were getting ready to lock the door on me. And I was like, "Hey, I just need a poker chip. That's all I need, and then I'm fucking out of here." And they're like, "Oh yeah, come in." So they got a chip and took off.
Yeah, we I can't remember. There's a couple in Michigan. Trying to think of the name of the other one. Scout and I went for Pig Dog's funeral, and we stopped, and we actually got there. We met up with a bunch of other Warthogs for the services to ride in, but that's where we met because several members worked at that one, and we got there before they opened, so they actually just slid the door open, let us in. We went in, grabbed a couple chips. I bought a shirt, and then we dipped out. To this day, that is probably the most expensive fucking Harley shirt that I own. And it's a T-shirt, and I paid like $50 fucking for it. I walked out, and Scout's like, "They got you for a shirt, huh?" And I'm like, "I really liked what it had on it, and I don't have a lot of Harley clothes." So I was like, "So I just treated myself to a shirt." And he's like, "What'd you pay for it?" And I told him, I was like, "With this chip and everything," I was like, "I spent like $53 in there." He's like, "And that's why I didn't take a shirt home."
They're fucking expensive, man. Anything with a
Fucking
Harley
Harley
Davidson.
Davidson, $100.
But another collection that I don't have, but I will get. My dad told me whenever he passes, he's got a couple antique guns that my grandfather had from the war, and he said you can either have those or my dad's got this huge ass old wicker basket, all full of walking sticks and canes. So my dad's dad used to collect them and would walk all the time and would collect different canes from different places he had been. So dad took over that collection when my grandfather passed, and my dad's had it ever since. And he got like a couple from Wolf Run, a couple from Spring Valley campgrounds, different places that he goes and he sees canes, he'll buy one and add it to the collection of canes. And I told him, I said, that's what I want because those canes all have stories behind them. Granted, the guns do too, but I think the canes would be more sentimental to me.
Yeah.
And my dad's got them somewhere. I think they're in storage somewhere. I haven't seen them in a long time, but I would like to go back through and look just to see any cane you can think of or walking stick. There's some tall, some short. One's got like a snake wrapped around it. One's like a deer head on it. Like there's just all kinds of different shit. And that really to me, the only really two things I can think of that I would collect. But is there anything else that you have other than just the chips?
When I was younger, especially going through scouts, I I had a weird thing with fire. I still do. Love fire. Love starting fires. Not like I'm not an arson.
Arson. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm not going out and setting buildings and shit on fire, but like bonfires, shit like that. The bigger the better. You can ask Scout. One I can vividly remember we were camping at Salt Fork, primitive grounds, pitch tent, no campers, none of that shit. And the adults had a fire, and then us juveniles at that time had a fire. Well, my goal was to build our fire bigger than their fire. And it actually got to the point that Scout came over with a shovel, started digging in the ground around the fire and dumping dirt on my fire to put it out because I'd made it so fucking big. So I have a Zippo collection. It's not huge. I might have like, I don't know, 8 or 10, but I have some, like one was my grandfather's. It's a NASCAR one. It's got a car engraved on it. And the guy's name. I have a Harley one, different designs, different things. I have just a plain Jane Zippo that's just silver with nothing on it. Again, scouts, we always carried a knife. So I have a small knife collection. Love knives. I usually buy one every year or so. I buy a new knife, new pocket knife, and I'll take my old one that I carried, sharpen it, put it up, put it in the box, start carrying a new one. Guns, I do have a nice gun safe. Wouldn't say that it's really a collection. None of them are, priceless or antiques. Actually, I can't say that they're not all. I have one that was given to me um, by my grandparents' friend Linda, and I don't even want to call her a friend. She was almost like another grandma to me. She's known me since I was a child. It was her husband's when he passed away. Just single shot 12 gauge. But every year that since she's given it to me, I went out and shot a deer with it. It's just my thing. I take it out in memory of Dino, and don't take a buck with it. I've shot a doe with it every year, but everybody's like, "You really take a single shot out?" I'm like, "I take it out every year at least once. I shoot a doe. I'm happy, and it gives me that sentimental kind of drive. Brings him back home because he meant a lot to me, meant a lot to the family. I have a 410, which was my first gun. It was my grandfather's, and it's actually older than he is. Single shot, snap open. Um, I don't shoot it very often. Shells are harder than hell to find for it anymore. but it was the first gun I ever got to shoot, and it's not the first gun my kids got to shoot, but one of the first ones that I'll give to one of them if they get into it and really like it. So poker chips, some guns, knives, Zippos, vintage signs like parking signs, no parking here, shit like that. If I can hang it up, decorate with it. I got a little man cave style type deal walking into my basement where I got a traffic light hanging up and an exit sign, things like that, which I got into when my dad passed away. I'd had a few before that, no trespassing. If you're found here tonight, you'll be found here tomorrow, shit like that. But my dad had a bunch of I don't even want to call them vintage because they're newer, but they're made in a vintage style.
Right.
But like the old gas station signs and mechanic signs, things like that. So when he passed away, I split a bunch of those with my other brother AJ and my dad's brother Mark. He took some of them, so it was nice to finally get a spot in the house to kind of display all those.
Yeah, I do have there's an older shotgun in there in my gun safe. It's not real old, but it was the first gun that my dad bought for me. It was a Mossberg 835, and the fucking camo paint on it's all fucking wore off, and like the shit's all fucking ate up on it. And I told Dad that I can't remember. I was short on money at the time. I told him, I was like, I don't need 2 shotguns. I thought about trading it in for an AR or a pistol or something like that. And he told me, he's like, well, I'll tell you what. He said, I'll give you the money for it. But he said, I want you to keep it until you have kids. And he said, then I want you to give it to them because that way it was your first gun and then you can give it to your kids. And I was like, fuck it. I don't need the money that bad. And I didn't wind up selling it or pawning it or anything. It just still sits in that gun safe. I haven't shot it in years, but I can tell, like, I've been looking at different ways to see what I can do with it to get the fucking paint to look half-ass decent on it again. But
you can always take it and find someone that does Cerakote, I think is how you say it, and they'll strip it down and put a new camo on it, or you can have skulls put on it.
Just something because it looks pretty fucked up.
They can put almost any design in nowadays that you want on it.
Really?
Yep.
But yeah, I got one of those that my dad gave me, and I remember you were talking about guns there too, and that. You also mentioned man caves. I want you to tell your story about the what you think of the man cave / podcast room that Kristen did while we were out.
Hey, Kristen, I know she'll hear this because I know she listens in, supports it. She did a banging fucking job. It's awesome. Hopefully, sometime soon I'll have a little setup at the house similar to it. Get some things moved around. But I walked in, you open the door, and it is a badass little space to just kind of hang out. Been comfortable in here the whole time, and I really like it. It's a nice area just to come and kick it. And I like your signage. A little mixture of some, I guess, work-related signage, some club signage, firefighter stuff. So I mean, it's decorated well and definitely kind of captures Wobble and who you are.
That's what I said the same thing too. I was like, I like it. I like the colors. It's Buckeye colors. It's fire colors. It's work colors. I was like, it just fits. Everything meshes so well together. And like I said, she did all of this while we were out for the Cleveland Memorial. We were out together, and that was the funniest part. Was I looked at the security camera to show, I think it was you or somebody.
It was me and Eric.
I was showing you guys the security camera and how it looked, and the fucking camera was down. I was like, well, I ain't gonna think too much about it. It's probably something the dogs bumped or something. Never thought that she was moving shit out of here to paint it to then move back into here.
Yeah, she did a great job. It's a really cool little space. We just got to talk her into letting us smoke some cigars in here. I feel like it almost needs to be christened with a good cigar smoking.
I think it wouldn't hurt to do it just in this room, but I have to find a way to seal it off and fucking open the window or something. But
no, I'm just picking on you. I like having my cigars too, but I will never smoke in the house. So
yeah, she just doesn't like, even with the wood burner, and you know how it is with the wood burner. Your clothes all smell like that wood burner smell. I like it.
It's the same as going down to the cigar lounge.
Yeah.
Go down there and hang out. Just walking out, and I've been in there. I've been smoking, but I walk out and get in my car, and I'm like, and now I fucking stink
like an
because
ashtray.
that fucking smell just sticks to you.
Well, buddy, we've been going on for 2 hours strong. I told you to leave yourself 2 hours for the podcast. I don't want to hold you up any longer. Thank you so much for coming on. This was a great time. I hope that this opens the door for other Warthogs, and they think about hitting me up and wanting to talk about their story about the motorcycle club and just some other things. But thank you so much again for coming on. Thanks for giving me your time. Sorry it took me so long to do this.
Nah, it's all good. I just like giving you shit.
I'm so glad we had a good time. I love giving you shit about your black fucking street glide because there's 100,000 of them out on the fucking road, and I never know which one's you.
I just want to throw out that it is no longer Harley's cheapest paint job.
Okay, I remember you told me that, but it's still the same fucking bike that everybody else has. But thanks again. I really appreciate all the banter that we have. I appreciate the friendship that you and I have created just within the few years of actually knowing each other. Even though we
Absolutely.
worked with each other since I started, I never knew you worked there. But the brotherhood that we've built since we both started in the club is something that I will never get back or give up or anything like that.
Absolutely, man.
And I really appreciate you being there for every step of the way through all of this. And I appreciate your support to the podcast and your support to me. It means a lot to have somebody like you in my life.
I appreciate that, man. Same to you.
So, ladies and gentlemen, until the next episode,
Stay wobbled.
thanks, guys. Have a good one.